Girl, I wanna stop your sweat. Stop it so you don't sweat no more. And once you dry out, you're gonna use it some more. Hey everybody, Walrus here from Walrus Street, bringing you a DD today on Brickell Biotech BBI. Just a reminder, I am not a financial professional. All information in this video is for entertainment purposes only. It's been a couple weeks since I've done a DD video, but here I am. I found one with a pretty solid buying opportunity. I'll cover why I think so this week. To be clear, this is not going to be a super long-term hold for me. I'm looking at trading this one over the course of the next 7 months, and I'll build up that investment thesis throughout this video. Back in January, I had a bunch of people suggesting Brickell Biotech to me, and I straight up ignored them because there were no nearby catalysts. As it turns out, I think I was correct because this share price has since returned to where it was in January. So effectively, I've been able to use the money that I would have otherwise spent on Brickell on other things for the last 6 months, making more money, and now I can go ahead and make that investment. That being said, I'm going to switch up the format a little bit of this DD to kind of make it a little more streamlined for time. You guys know my 4 questions to answer before I invest in a company. Who's in charge? What's the product? What are the financials? Who else is involved? I'm going to answer those same 4 questions today, but a little bit out of order. We're going to start with question 2. What's the product? So I guess from here on forth in my channel, that's going to be question 1. What's the product? The product, in short, it's antiperspirant. That's right, I'm going to be investing in a company that stops people from sweating. Hence the intro, right? You need to go back and hear that again. I mean, I thought it was pretty obvious there, but you know, it's an antiperspirant video. Brickell Bio, here is their pipeline. That's it. It's like literally one thing. I mean, this is a one-trick pony company. It's sort of like BDSI in that way. Their primary product candidate is Sofpironium Bromide. It is retro-metabolically designed, topical, anticholinergic for primary axillary hyperhidrosis. They're currently doing phase 3 safety testings that are the precursor to the FDA NDA application. To make this perfectly clear, this is a clinical biotech company with no products for sale. That being said, they have a partner in Japan that is currently already selling this same formulation as a clinical strength antiperspirant, and Brickell Biotech is getting revenue from that company, and they also have a contract structured to where they get income rewards at certain sales levels. Now, we don't know the specifics of the contract, but that is going to provide them with some amount of revenue to offset their R&D expenses until we get to commercialization after FDA approval. What is this Sofpironium bromide? What is axillary hyperhidrosis? Is this even important? This is an interesting website that I found. It's called sweathelp.org, and this is for really sweaty people that have issues and are a little bit self-conscious about their sweating and feel that it interferes with their daily lives. Hyperhidrosis, sometimes called excessive sweating, is a disorder of uncontrollable, extreme episodic, unexpected sweating beyond what's considered normal or is necessary to maintain thermal homeostasis or as a reaction to stress. Individuals with hyperhidrosis may sweat 4 to 5 times more than average. You see throughout all the coverage of hyperhidrosis, it's a physiological condition with a strong mental aspect to it, wherein a lot of the sweating is brought about by stress, and the people that have hyperhidrosis are incredibly self-conscious about their sweating. You know, sweating through your clothes, you see the pit stains, they're very uncomfortable about it. Axial hyperhidrosis is going to be sweating from the underarm, and that is what the Brickell product is designed to treat. There are other types of hyperhidrosis. You might have hyperhidrosis in your lower back, on your palms, you know, sweaty handshakes, everybody loves those. On your feet, boob sweat could be an area where some of the ladies experience hyperhidrosis. My point is, it can affect all parts of the body, but the Brickell product is for axillary hyperhidrosis, just underarm sweat. That's the only thing it's being tested and approved for, and the only place it's supposed to be used. Thankfully, axillary hyperhidrosis is the most common location for people with hyperhidrosis. Also, based on data published in 2016, there are approximately 15.3 million individuals, or 4.8% of the population, living with hyperhidrosis in just the US. See seeing as they've partnered with a company to sell this product in Japan, I can already tell you this is not a condition that's limited to sweaty folks in the US, but rather sweaty folks worldwide, which makes me feel as though 5% of the global population most likely has hyperhidrosis. Also, it could be an underdiagnosed, underreported condition since it's obviously not an emergency medical condition, and this number might well be higher. Regardless, 5% with hyperhidrosis, and then I found some other information indicating that about 2/3 of the people with hyperhidrosis have axillary hyperhidrosis under their arms, so you can see this affects a huge percent of the world's population, aka the TAM is large. So how do you treat primary axial hyperhidrosis? Typically start with topical antiperspirant therapy. Most of the current antiperspirant therapies are aluminum or zirconium salts, and there's also glycopyrronium cloth. The problem with the aluminum and zirconium salts is that they cause a lot of skin irritation to the point where you might have skin, not just erythema, not just redness, but actually peeling and blistering from the salt's presence on the skin, kind of creating an acid on the skin. The glycopyrronium cloth is the primary competitor for the Brickell product, and we're going to talk more about this in a moment, but also it's not ideal. So there's definitely room in this area for the Brickell antiperspirant. Sofpironium bromide is an anticholinergic. Now, an anticholinergic is a group of substances that blocks the action of neurotransmitter called acetylcholine at synapses in the central and peripheral nervous system. Since we're dealing with axillary hyperhidrosis, we're actually talking about the peripheral nervous system specifically. These agents inhibit the parasympathetic nervous system by selectively blocking the binding of ACH to its receptor nerve cells. These nerve fibers of the parasympathetic system are responsible for involuntary movement of smooth muscles present in the GI tract, urinary tract, lungs, sweat glands, and many other parts of the body. So we see what it is. The glycopyrronium cloth from the Brickell competitor is another anticholinergic product. So it operates through the same mechanisms, and it actually has similar side effects. So the two can be talked about one and the same. Again, we'll talk about that in a moment. Side note, the Sofpironium bromide was discovered at the University of Florida. Chomp! Gator Nation is everywhere. I ended up deciding to do this today because of some information that I found on FDA Tracker. By the way, if you guys are interested in trading biotech stocks and you don't have a subscription to this website, consider getting one. I pay a $30 monthly subscription for this one, which is a little bit steep, but it gives me all information for upcoming clinical trials. I could sort by phase, by market cap, by company, conditions, completion date, that sort of thing. I was doing my normal search on Saturday, just doing some research, getting caught up, and I noticed that Brickell Biotech has one phase 3 study ending on July 1st and another phase 3 study ending on September 1st. And per direct comments from their CEO, both studies are on track to finish at their scheduled times. So this gives us two catalysts, July 1st, September 1st, not necessarily to the day because it's going to be whenever the company decides to publish results from them, but we can see that we have two studies wrapping phase 3 here in just the next couple of months. Catalyst, anybody? The two studies are exactly the same. It's just been doubled up to ensure that the FDA grants the new drug application because two different studies, different physicians, different locations, different population groups. If they can normalize the results across these two studies and demonstrate efficacy and safety, then there's a higher likelihood the FDA is going to approve the product. The first study, safety and efficacy study of Sofpironium bromide in subjects with axillary hyperhidrosis, Cardigan I. Wow, cardigan. What's a cardigan? It's a sweater. Person who sweats, it's a sweater. Oh my gosh, these people are absolute meme lords. They named their study Cardigan. This study has 350 participants, randomized parallel assignment, and it's a longitudinal study over a time frame of weeks. The second study is exactly the same title, Cardigan II. Cardigan II, Electric Boogaloo. Same thing, 350 participants, randomized parallel assignment, longitudinal over the course of a couple of weeks. The reason they're testing it over a couple of weeks is because for hyperhidrosis, it requires longer term treatment, and they're testing the safety of the product to make sure there's no adverse reactions, or at least severely adverse reactions, to the presence of the product topically. This is just something that happened on Friday at the US Patent and Trademark Office. This is a trademark that Brickell Biotech filed back on April 20 28th, and it was just updated to awaiting examination for SAHAREO. Just a shot in the dark, but I'm pretty sure SAHAREO is going to be the name of this sofpironium bromide drug once it gets approved. Following the logic that they named their clinical studies Cardigan for sweaters, it begs to follow that they'll probably name their product after another ridiculous pun, Sahara, SAHAREO. I think that works out pretty well. So this might be the first time this is covered on YouTube, but this is probably going to be the trademark of their product. At the end of April, Brickell Biotech completed its patient enrollment in the US phase 3 pivotal Cardigan I study of Sofpironium Bromide Gel, 15% for the treatment of primary axillary hyperhidrosis. This is the same study we just looked at. Subjects will apply Sofpironium Bromide Gel 15% or placebo to their underarms once daily at bedtime for 6 consecutive weeks, with a 2-week post-treatment follow-up. The co-primary efficacy endpoints of both studies include the proportion of subjects achieving at least a 2-point improvement on the hyperhidrosis disease severity measure axillary or HDSM-Ax scale, a proprietary and validated patient-reported outcome measure, and change in gravimetric sweat production from each baseline to the end of treatment. So 6 weeks of treatment, 2 weeks of follow-up, 8 weeks total involved in the study, which is why I said it's longitudinal, and that also gives them plenty of time to test safety. Now, something interesting there, for them to conduct this study, they created the HDSM-Ax scale. This measurement was something they derived at the company. So the company has effectively created their own measurement scale. It has been academically validated and peer-reviewed, but this also gives them an advantage because they can kind of dictate the pace of the scale and cater it to where they're looking for effects they know their product offers. Also, we have gravimetric sweat production being measured, which is the amount of sweat, the liquid coming from the axillary area, from the armpit. This is something that's quite normal for most antiperspirant companies to report. So this gives a comparative measure for the Brickell product to be compared against other existing products. The company expects to announce top-line results from the Cardigan I and Cardigan II clinical studies in the 4th quarter of 2021. If successful, the results from the studies are expected to form a basis for prospective NDA in the US for Sofpironium Bromide Gel 15% for the treatment of primary axillary hyperhidrosis. You keep seeing the 15% there. The 15% is the percent of the active ingredient, the Sofpironium Bromide Gel. In Japan, the product is being sold with only a 5% Sofpironium Bromide Gel, so it's a lower concentration. One of my concerns with this company that I'll address later in the video is that there's a possibility that there might be too many side effects with the higher concentration drug, with the 15% drug. But I think they were kind of swinging for the fences here with the 15% and trying to outcompete their primary competitor in the US market. And so far, the results look pretty good and the side effects seem pretty mild. Another interesting thing, and the reason that I say we're going to have catalysts after the wrap of the phase 3 studies for Cardigan I and Cardigan II, is because the company has already started releasing early indications of the data. This is from April 21st. Brickell said the study results further strengthen the safety, tolerability, and efficacy data previously observed in its phase 2b study of Sofpironium Bromide Gel. The majority of side effects were mild or moderate in severity and transient in nature. The company said Sofpironium Bromide Gel 5% and 15% both led to sustained improvements in sweating severity for the majority of patients through the end of 48 weeks of treatment. Now, if you thought the 8 weeks for the phase 3 studies weren't enough, the phase 2b lasted for 4 years, which is one reason why this company is making no money, even though it's such an established company. They've been running these longitudinal studies. The share price right now is really darn low, and we're getting close to the end, so that's one reason I feel like this is a good time to buy in. The side effects were mostly mild or moderate in severity and transient in nature. The most common and expected treatment-related effects reported were blur vision, dry mouth, and pruritus. No treatment-related serious adverse events were observed in adult and pediatric patients, and no new safety signals emerged. There's pediatric patients in this study, no severe results were observed, and those side effects are the same as with any anticholinergic side effects. So there's nothing unexpected here. This is really promising. The Japanese company that they're partnered with is Kaken, K-A-K-E-N. Kaken has actually already published a study in the Journal of Dermatology about the Sofpironium Bromide Gel, and you can see they're using BBI 4000, which is the registered code for the gel registered to Brickell. In this study, the scientists measured the HDSM-Ax score, so they used the same Brickell-derived scale that's being used in the US studies as well. And they also monitored total gravimetric weight of sweat at the end of treatment. I don't need to go into the exact results here, but they were all improvements. So the product does work. It was approved in Japan. What's really remarkable here is that this was published in the Journal of Dermatology. The Journal of Dermatology has a really high impact factor. This is a journal that's highly referenced in other research. And if you're not familiar with academic studies, the higher the impact factor of a journal, the higher the exposure of the piece that's published within it. So the fact that Kaken got this study published in the Journal of Dermatology with an impact factor of 3.07, this is going to be highly referenced, highly read, and within the academic community, it's going to make a lot of people very familiar with the idea of the Sofpironium bromide. That 3.07 number probably means nothing to you, but when you're comparing impact factors of academic journals, you want to compare them to other journals in the same field. So if we look at medicine right here, the average impact factor is 2.75, top 20% is 3.29, top 40% is 2.26. So for a 3.07, we're actually looking at something that's about in the top 25% of medical journals. And it was just published in the January 2021 volume of the Journal of Dermatology. Now, this is the Kaken investor presentation, and I wanted to go into here to show you their perspective. For the Sofpironium bromide, they're marketing it under the name ECCLOCK, ECCLOCK, as a primary axillary hyperhidrosis treatment. It is the first topical pharmaceutical in Japan for primary axillary hyperhidrosis. It's applied to both armpits once a day, and the device allows application without touching the liquid. Earlier, remember I said it's only been tested on the axillary region, on the armpit region, and it's not approved for other areas of the skin. So it's important to have a device that doesn't cause you to have to touch it with your hand. It was launched originally on November 26, 2020, and the drug price for a 20-gram bottle is about 4,874 yen, which converts to about $44 US. A little on the high end, but we'll talk about why that's not a huge deal in a moment. In fiscal year 2020, it launched as the first topical agent in Japan, and it's already been enlisted by 75% of the target dermatological facilities. So there's really high adoption. Forecast for fiscal year 2021 is 2 billion yen for the entire year. 2 billion yen converts to about 18 million US dollars. That's not a huge amount, but keep in mind, Brickell is going to be getting royalties and payments off of this. Now, I was researching typical royalty structures for a contract since we don't know the details. They have royalties and incentives, and a typical royalty structure for a pharmaceutical that has already passed clinical stage and been approved is somewhere around the 10 to 15% range. So if we're looking at 10 to 15%, just for the royalties alone, this is about $1.8 million, which is enough to offset a small portion of their R&D expenses. Now, with the payment reward structure, that number goes up. We can't know how much, but this isn't a huge moneymaker. This is, however, good exposure, and it's an offset to their R&D expenses until the product can go for sale in the US. This Japanese company is working on Sofpironium Bromide Gel to be used on palmoplantar hyperhidrosis, so on the hands and feet also. This is currently a new drug in development, and they're going through testing. Right now, they're preparing for phase 1. So this is a long way off, but they're seeing if this can be used for other parts of the body as well. Good for the future if you want to be a long-term holder, not really my focus. Earlier, I mentioned the price was about $44 a bottle, which is really steep, but Kaken Pharmaceutical announced the ECCLOCK Gel 5% was listed on the National Health Insurance Drug Reimbursement price list in Japan. So it's already on the National Health Insurance price list, so consumers aren't going to be deterred from getting this product despite the high price point. On to the competitor for Brickell. Eli Lilly previously acquired a company called Dermira. This just happened in 2020. Dermira developed a drug called Qbrexza. Qbrexza is a wipe, a bromide-based anticholinergic wipe to use for axillary hyperhidrosis. Eli Lilly, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, just acquired Dermira in 2020 for $1.1 billion, and they're already selling off Qbrexza. So I have to wonder why they're doing this. Qbrexza brought in last year about $24 million. It's a popular product, but Eli Lilly is already divesting it, even though they just purchased the parent company last year. Qbrexza is based on glycopyrronium bromide, which is another anticholinergic. It has topical uses, and really it's kind of a similar product to Sofpironium Bromide Gel, but from what I've read, glycopyrronium might cause a little more skin irritation than the Sofpironium Bromide Gel. Here's a study for the topical glycopyrronium tosylate for the treatment of primary axillary hyperhidrosis. This is for the Qbrexza. They measured with the Axillary Sweating Daily Diary, which is a patient-reported outcome measure. This is different from the one that was developed by Brickell, so we can't actually compare these results directly. Different patient group, different numbers of patient, different instrument used. However, there were also measurements for sweat production measured gravimetrically in this study, which is similar to the Cardigan I and Cardigan II studies for Brickell. So once we have those study results done from Brickell, we can compare the gravimetric sweat production data from those studies with the ones from the Atmos studies for glycopyrronium, and we can see the kind of comparison between Qbrexza and the Sofpironium Bromide product from Brickell. Qbrexza was studied in 697 patients in 2 clinical trials that lasted 4 weeks. So right away, you can see that there's more patients by 3 for the Cardigan studies. It's 2 clinical trials, same as the Brickell, and 4 weeks. We actually have a longer period for the Brickell studies with 6 weeks and then the 2 weeks of follow-up. In every way, the Brickell studies are more thorough than the studies that were done by Dermira for Qbrexza. My point here is the likelihood of acceptance eventually for the NDA application with the FDA is pretty high, because in every way, Brickell is trying to outdo what Dermira did with Qbrexza. Now, regarding that analysis measure, hyperhidrosis disease severity measured axillary, or HDSM-Ax, evaluation of measurement properties in phase 2 study data. This is a poster presentation from Brickell about their measurement. This measurement is an 11-item measure of axillary hyperhidrosis severity in subjects over 12 years of age. Each question has 5 response categories, scored 0 to 4. A child-specific HDSM-Ax was developed for children 9 to 12. The development progress aimed to satisfy regulatory and scientific requirements for registration clinical trials. Content validity was supported by iterative rounds of qualitative and quantitative research. This instrument creation was absolutely legitimate, and it was validated academically. And as an indication of this validation, Brickell Biotech announced publication of their instrument, HDSM-Ax patient-reported outcome scale validation results, in the Journal of Drugs in Dermatology. This happened just on April 15th. The Journal of Drugs in Dermatology has a lower impact factor of 1.464, but still, this does put it in the top 70% of medical journals, which is high enough to get some traction into where people can find it for references. Also, it's not uncommon for an instrument to be published in a lower tier journal, because the instrument itself is not really adding any new knowledge to the field of academics. It's just adding a tool that people can use to gain that new knowledge. So for a new instrument to be published in a lower impact factor journal, this isn't really a big deal. That brings us to question number 2, who's in charge? I don't want to go through everybody on the leadership page, but let's start with Deepak Chadha, who's their chief R&D officer. Mr. Chadha has more than 2 decades of regulatory and clinical development experience in the pharma, biotech, and medical device fields, and he's responsible for leading Brickell's R&D. He served as the vice president of global regulatory affairs at Allergan Medical, where he assisted with building the organization's global regulatory affairs department and was involved with approvals for Juvederm, BioEnterics, Lap-Band, and silicone-filled breast implants. I'm not familiar with BioEnterics, but Juvederm, Lap-Band, and silicone-filled breast implants are used all over the world. This man was leading the regulatory department that helped get them approved. This is the kind of person that you want leading your R&D team. Their co-founder and COO is still involved with the company, Andy Sklar. Previously, he served as the head of operations at Concordia Pharmaceuticals, an oncology drug development company. He's a Gator grad, go Gators. He also is a board member for Startup FIU and the advisory committee for the Advancing Innovation in Dermatology Accelerator Fund. So not only is he a co-founder of this company, but he's a board member of a dermatology innovation fund. This puts him in touch with all of the relevant parties in the industry. Now, the last one that I want to talk about is the CEO, Robert Brown. Perhaps the most interesting, not because of his accolades, but because of what we mentioned earlier with Eli Lilly selling off Qbrexza. Rob Brown joins Brickell as the CEO after having spent 30 years at Eli Lilly and Company, where he recently served as their CMO and Senior VP of Marketing from 2009 to 2018. As the CMO, Brown was responsible for building and leading marketing capabilities across Lilly's pharmaceutical business units, including diabetes, oncology, emerging markets, and Lilly Biomedicines. Before CMO, he was the VP and Chief Marketing Officer for Lilly USA from 2007 and 2009. And before that, he was the Executive Director of Marketing for Intercontinental Region, including Europe. Before that, he was the Global Marketing Director for Cialis and Lilly ICOS, a 50-50 joint venture between Lilly and ICOS Corp from 1999 to 2003. This man spent an entire career at Eli Lilly. That means he still has deep connections with the company, and as their chief marketing officer, he has deep connections high up in the company. I find it incredibly fortuitous that Eli Lilly sold off Qbrexza just after buying out the parent company Dermira in 2020 for $1.1 billion, which puts them in need of a hyperhidrosis option. With Robert Brown's connections to Eli Lilly and the fact that he's leading Brickell, a company that is about to have a hyperhidrosis treatment, I can't help but wonder if Brickell is going to be a future buyout option for Eli Lilly. With Brickell's market cap at $57 million, buyout would be much more reasonable for this company than it was for Dermira at $1.1 billion. Of course, that's just speculation, but in business, there's no such thing as a coincidence. And this man brings the correct relationships to the table for Brickell. Also, when we're looking at the insiders of the company, who's involved, you can see the shareholdings here for all of the people, but one thing I want to bring your attention to is there's some exercises and some taxes, but lately we've had nothing but purchases starting in May. David McAvoy, Deepak Chadha, Andrew Sklar, and even the CEO, Robert Brown, he ended up buying the top at $1.77 back in March. So maybe he's not the greatest investor. The rest of these investments came in around 80 cents. These are for large portions of shares. So right now we have insider buying on the top level executives in the company going back to March with the CEO buying the top at $1.77 a share, and more recently other C-suite personnel buying it at about 80 cents. 80 cents seems to be the floor for this share price. It seems to be a really strong support on the chart as well. Insider transactions right now are about 26.7% increased. Insider ownership is a percent. The float right now is 65.6 million. This is going up because the company is in the middle of an offering. The short interest is only 6%, so that's not really something we have to worry about. Market cap of 55 million. It is worth noting that Brickell did go through a reverse split, a 1-for-7 reverse split back in 2019. Now, a reverse split on a biotech company leaves a sour taste in a lot of investors' mouths because it absolutely destroys the share value. But when you look at their phase 2b study and you realize that was a longitudinal study over 4 years, the likelihood of a reverse split at that point was very high. And that's why I don't like investing in these preclinical pharma companies in phase 1, phase 2. It's a bad time to invest because you're going to be waiting years for your investment to pay fruition. But here we're coming out of phase 3 and this is looking pretty solid. This is the company's earnings call transcript from May 13th. Now this just happened 2 weeks ago. Patient enrollments complete in the Cardigan I study, and the Cardigan II study already surpassed 70% enrollment. Keep in mind the Cardigan II study is not expected to be completed until September, so it's on track. As a reminder, both phase 3 pivotal clinical studies are evaluating Sofpironium Bromide Gel against placebo, approximately 350 patients each. Both Cardigan studies remain on track, and we expect to announce the top-line results from the phase 3 program in the fourth quarter of 2021. Also, they talk about the eClock partnership with Kaken in Japan. As a reminder, Brickell is entitled to receive sales-based milestone payments as well as tiered royalty based on a percentage of net sales of eClock in Japan. We don't know the contract details, but it is going to be providing some revenue. Now, to be clear, last quarter it only provided $17,000 worth of revenue to the company, which is nothing, but that was just the beginning of the period for eClock sales, so it should be going up into the hundreds of thousands here very soon. On the income sheet, that absolutely looks terrible, but you have to understand that's like the very beginning of sales. Very bullish. As a result of our current warrant exercises and proceeds raised through our at-the-money offering program, which I'll talk about in a moment, we've strengthened our balance sheet with $34.8 million of cash as of March 31st, 2021. This added financial stability provides us with sufficient cash runway to fund our operations into next year that allows us to continue executing on key activities that will enable us to submit a new drug application with the FDA for Sofpironium Bromide Gel in 2022, pending successful outcome of the phase 3 progress. That's all I want to cover there. You have an assurance from the company saying they don't really need to raise more money. They're currently doing an at-the-money share offering, and they're good through the end of the phase 3 results. And because my perspective on this company is to get in and then sell off my shares by the phase 3 result pop, that's all I care about. I'm not going to be substantially diluted between now and then. Speaking of dilution, this is why I'm a little worried about about this company. On March 9th, 2021, the company filed a shelf offering for $150 million. Now, a shelf offering is an offering sold at the market price, but the company doesn't have to do it all at once. So just because they filed this doesn't mean it's happening. And in fact, it's not. Shortly thereafter, on March 17th, they filed an agreement with Oppenheimer and Company and William Blair and Company as the agents to manage the sale of up to $50 million of common stock. So out of that shelf, they're diluting with $50 million of common stock, which is going to, when it's completed, bring the shares outstanding up to around 100 million shares. The thing is, the trading volume on Brickell is so low that these shares can't just be dumped on the market without crashing the share price. So they're slowly being bled out every single day. And if you look at the trading volume for Brickell, it's around 1 million shares a day. We're looking at about 50 trading days or 10 weeks for this offering to happen. And that's if they're doing the maximum million shares a day, which I doubt. So this is going to be something that's going to be pushing downward on the price over the next couple weeks and kind of artificially keeping the price down. So if you see the shares of BBI not moving over the next couple weeks, this is why. That brings us to question number 4. Who's involved? Institutions are currently buying in between the last 2 quarters, and there are no sales, no divestitures being reported on Simply Wall Street. So we have Vanguard Group, Armistice Capital, Renaissance, Palisade, Geode. We've got Morgan Stanley upping their stake by 142%. Virtue Financial Asset Management upping their stake by 242%. Thriven Investment Management upping their stake by 139%. While the shares themselves aren't a really high amount, these institutions are all buying in between the last couple quarters. They understand what's happening with this company, and the phase 3 study is concluding. There's one other sort of interesting thing that's worth talking about here that I'm not allowing it to factor into my investment thesis, but you should be aware of this if you're planning on holding this company for a longer period of time. Now, back in September of 2020, AHh, which is a Japanese company, and Brickell Biotech announced a collaboration agreement for the development of a novel DNA vaccine candidate for COVID-19 in the US. AHh is a company in Japan that's developing the vaccine, and they partnered with Brickell to help bring that vaccine into the United States should it be proven to be successful. So this is all around a big reach. So far, it doesn't look like anything that's going to affect the company until 2022 at the very earliest. So honestly, this is not something that I'm considering with my investment. If you go to the COVID-19 vaccine tracker website, you could see they're in phase 3 right now in Japan with a total enrollment of 500 patients. So this has progressed fairly far. The Japanese Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare just this week on May 25th issued an update for their own internal vaccines. Japan has actually not been developing its own vaccines predominantly since the 1990s because of a series of lawsuits within the country against vaccine makers. Nobody's really wanted to do this, and the companies that do it end up taking on a huge amount of debt, and just is no exception. The only reason that I bring this up is because AHh is listed down here on the bottom in this official pamphlet by the Japanese government saying that they do have a vaccine in the works. There was this publication that was released about their own vaccines. Products are being developed at home by AHh, Shionogi, and others, and they're not expected to be approved until at least 2022, if at all. So like I said, I'm planning on getting out of my Brickell position after the phase 3 clinical results are announced in Q4. So this COVID vaccine thing has no bearing on my investment, but it might be something that's valuable for other people to know who are planning to hold this longer as a potential catalyst. Let's take a quick look at the Brickell chart on Webull. Currently, we're sitting at about 82 cents a share after market. The market cap you could see is only 54.77 million. What I find to be interesting about the chart specifically is this 80 cent level. This 80 cent level has been a support going back to July, and we've just been bouncing along it for the last 2 months or so. And you can see why the insiders bought in at the level that they bought in at. The RSI is declining, the MACD is looking pretty flat right now. If we go to the analyst projections right now, there's only 2 analysts covering the company. One has it at a strong buy, the other one's a buy. $5 to $6 within the next 12 months, which is multiples off the current price right now. Let's go ahead and do a little SWOT analysis like I always like to do, kind of to recap what we've learned and talk about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, opportunities and threats for this company. Strengths. Axillary hyperhidrosis is an underserved issue right now, and there's no gel products that are typical to normal antiperspirants on the market. The closest thing is the Qbrexza, which is a wipe, and it's not a gel like a normal antiperspirant. And I say normal because on all of the literature for these heavy sweating hyperhidrosis websites I looked at, they really emphasize normal. And don't discount the desire for people to be normal. If there was a gel antiperspirant product put next to Qbrexza, which is a wipe, most people are going to choose that which they are familiar with, which is going to be the Brickell product. Per the company's own earnings report last quarter, the company believes it has enough cash right now to get through 2022 without further dilution past the ongoing one that's happening right now. This is great because they don't have to touch the other $100 million of their $150 million shelf offering, which is not going to cause significant further dilution of the shares. Another strength, the royalty and income-based income they're getting from the HODLing sales from Kaken in Japan. It's not substantial yet, but this revenue is going to help offset some of their R&D expenses and get them going into the future financially. A big strength are the 3 catalysts that we have coming before the end of 2021. We have the end of Cardigan I, end of Cardigan II, and the formal publication of those phase 3 studies. The reason that all 3 of them are catalysts is that the company has already shown a penchant for releasing PR about the studies before their completion. So we can expect to hear something about Cardigans 1 and 2 around September, around July, when those studies are scheduled to complete as per the clinicaltrials.gov website. Institutional and insider buying, both of them. Insiders buying up this 80-cent level in May, and institutions upping their positions between the last 2 quarters. That 80-cent per share level is a very strong support. We could be near the bottom right now or at the bottom. So this is a comfortable place to buy based on the technicals alone, but also the insiders buying up the 80-cent level kind of gives you further support for that idea. Weaknesses. There is a $150 million shelf offering filed. 50 million of that is in progress, like I said, because of the daily volume that's likely to be suppressing the price now for probably a couple of months to come. Right now, their revenue is minimal. It's whatever they get from the income levels from Kaken and the royalties from Kaken for HODLing. This is a clinical stage company, so we expect that. This is not a first mover. This is the second anticholinergic product on the market after Qbrexza. It is the first gel type antiperspirant as opposed to a wipe, but it is not the first mover in this area. Also, another weakness we have to discuss, there was a previous reverse split 1-for-7 in 2019. This kind of turns off a lot of investors who feel as though there's a higher risk of their investment being lost. Opportunities. The partnership with Kaken is a big opportunity because Kaken is actually licensed to sell products throughout Eastern Asia, Taiwan, Korea, China, on top of just Japan, which could give additional exposure to the product from Brickell. Another opportunity is the size of the market. Almost 5% of US adults have hyperhidrosis. About 2/3 of that has axillary hyperhidrosis, and this is an underserved population. In Japan, we already see insurance coverage from the National Health Insurance covering the cost of HODLing. So we can imagine that there will be similar considerations given once the FDA does approve this product in the future in America from Medicare. Another opportunity is the possible buyout by Eli Lilly. Now, this is pure conjecture on my part. This is just me putting the things together with Dermira's Qbrexza being divested from Eli Lilly less than a year after Eli Lilly paid $1.1 billion for Dermira's acquisition. This frees up the need for a hyperhidrosis option in Eli Lilly's portfolio, and the CEO for Brickell worked at Eli Lilly for almost 20 years. Another opportunity, not one that I care about really, is the partnership with Anges for the COVID vaccine in Japan. Like I said earlier, I don't really much care for that one, but it is an opportunity if things work out. But realistically, that's not something that we would even have a catalyst until 2020, if it even happens at all. Threats. The company can't file its FDA new drug application until 2022 after it's had time to process the phase 3 results from Cardigan I and Cardigan II. This is not going to have any type of expedited filing with the FDA, so it is going to take about 10 months for approval from the moment that it is filed, which effectively is going to be another year. So this company is going to be another year plus without revenue substantial other than the royalty. So, like I said, this is not something I want to be holding for a really long time because there is going to be a period where they're likely to dip into that extra $100 million share offering. Another threat, and something that I'm a little concerned about, Eklock with Kaken in Japan was approved for the 5% formulation of the Sofpironium Bromide Gel. So why is Brickell pushing the 15% gel in America? In my mind, that makes it likelier to be deemed as being unsafe or having adverse effects because of the higher concentration. I think this is a strong move by the company where they're really trying to show their product works, and if this does go in their favor, then it's going to have much better results than Qbrexza or anything else to come on the market. So this is a power play by them, but this is also a threat because they're not playing it conservative. If there's a problem with the phase 3 results, then the company is going to be sidelined for another year plus, rerunning the phase 3 with the 5% formulation. Like I said before, there's still $100 million worth of the shelf offering left, and another risk is more dilution. Now, the company says they don't need to touch that, but that is a risk for the future if you're planning on holding this longer term. A reverse stock split is possible. The company's shown that they're willing to do it in the past. Right now, we're below $1. We're below that threshold. So if we don't get above $1 again for the next 6 months, then there's a possibility of delisting, which is going to trigger the reverse split. I don't think that's likely, but it is prudent to mention that as a threat. Now, my plan for this company, for BBI, I'm going to be purchasing 1,500 shares at around 80 cents a share. I believe right now is 82 cents. That's close enough. We still have some time before the July catalyst. So if the price drops below that 80 cents a share or 82, whatever I buy at, then I'll be adding another 500 shares onto that to lower my cost basis. My plan is to bleed out my position on catalysts. For the Cardigan I study results, any PR associated with that, I'm going to sell off 15% of my position. That should be somewhere around July. In September with Cardigan II, I'm going to sell off another 25% of my position with the Cardigan II PR. Then I'm going to sell off the last 60% of my position after the phase 3 results between both studies are formally announced sometime in Q4. So my goal by the time we get the pop on the news in Q4 is to have no shares of Brickell remaining in my portfolio. It's not because I don't like the company, but it's because then we're going to have 10 months of nothing until the FDA grants approval. And I'm not willing to keep my money in this company for that period of time with looming dilution. There you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video today. As always, if you're new to investing and you want to support my channel, please check out my Webull referral link below the video. If you sign up for an account, deposit $100, you get a free stock, I get a free stock, everybody wins. Because I'm partnered with Webull, the free stock that I'll be getting is worth $30 or higher. As always, if you enjoyed the video today, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to be alerted to all my content as soon as it goes live, make sure you hit that notification bell. All right, everybody, thanks a lot. Stay safe. Good luck investing, and I'll see you next time.